G2. My name is Zachary Hosteds. For those of you who haven't met me, um, a little bit about myself. I'm an application developer here at Configura. I graduated from Full Sail University with a bachelor's in computer science and a master's in game design. I've been, yeah. uh, so I've been working with CM for CET Designer since the beginning of last year. So I'm still fairly new here. And most of my focus has been on extension customization. Um, so a quick overview on what we're going to talk about today. I'm going to talk about the drawbacks of the old animation system, the features of Animation G2, and how it's different from the old system, and lastly, why you should switch. Um, so first off, we have the drawbacks of the old animation system. Firstly, it's complex. How is it complex? Basically, the old animation system is required to do all of the work itself. It's state-driven, which is great because as the animation is going through and trying to do stuff, it's having to constantly check every time a user does something, what state am I in, and that's not so great for the speed of the animation. It's not as responsive to the user input. Um, and this also leads to duplication of code and features. So if you want to do something on a specific snapper, you're going to make an animation. If you want to do something on a set of snappers, you might end up having to do that animation multiple times. And this isn't ideal either because in creating that duplicate functionality, this can introduce bugs in multiple places. So you have to maintain the code in multiple places, which also isn't ideal. Maintaining as little code as possible is the route. So then we have the design of the old system versus the new system. So the old system, the base class for that was the obsolete state mouse animation. I believe the name of the animation says it all. It's obsolete. So it is state-based, and it made use of animation properties. So it's one animation that does a thing, and that's it. Then we have the spawning animation and the core animations, which are the base classes of Animation G2. These make use of core properties, vessels, and prop defs. This gives the animation the ability to be very modular in nature. You don't have the animation reliant on, oh, I'm going to operate on this snapper specifically. The vessels can do a lot of that work for you. And the prop defs allow you to generically give the animation data from snappers or give vessels data generically. Like it's very, very nice and easy to use. It's just a lot better in general. So a quick example of the old style of animation here. The top right is a nice little flow chart. So you get into the animation, you have your first state. It's going to do something. The user does something state, and this is all very kind of clunky. The animation is also responsible for generating any graphics itself. And if you want to go to a new state, if you want to introduce a new state in the animation, it becomes kind of problematic because if you want to put a state in between state 1 and state 2, then now you're having to add logic for flowing from that state 1 to the new state, and then from that new state to state 2. And it's just kind of a pain. Then we have an example of animation G2. So the animation starts up. It spawns a vessel, which is its behavior, its main behavior. That vessel is responsible for having graphics. In this example, I like to think of essentially going from a point to a point and drawing a line. So the first behavior is picking the first point, and then once you have picked that first point and the animation responds to the user's input, it tells its second behavior, which is a vessel within the vessel. So the main behavior vessel has vessels itself. And this second behavior is you dragging, and then you click, you get your second point, and then that's going to spawn the third behavior, which is going to generate the line, and then it ends the animation. And by default, you can restart that animation with animation G2. It just does it by default. And obviously, at any point, you could end the animation if you wanted at any of the behaviors given user input, responding to events and stuff. Now, so we have obviously vessels, prop defs, and the core properties, which are the main backbone of animation G2. It's what gives it the flexibility. It's what makes it modular and makes it better. So the new animations gain a lot of their power from vessels and prop defs. The vessels allow for encapsulation of functionality for the animation to use. The vessels also allow snappers to provide functionality to the animation without the animation knowing about the snapper. So it's generic knowledge of the snapper by the animation. And then prop defs allow for easy and concise setup of prop defs or properties on the animation. So you just push the properties and you have them. Some important methods within animation G2. We have update. This replaces the move and drag. It is what gets fired whenever something in the animation changes. Then you have selected, which is left mouse click, release, left mouse release. Init controller, this spawns the animation controller, which is responsible for handling all of the user input and sending it to the animation, firing events in the animation. Then we have init vessels, which is what creates the vessels in the animation. And the vessels are behavior or graphics or whatever you want them to be. Then we have event vessel notify. This is what is responsible for sending events to the vessels. So you can either tell event vessel notify which vessel you want to send the event to, or you can do it the more broad approach and just say, I want to notify vessels of release. So the user releases the button, I fire off an event to all of my vessels. All of my vessels know that the release button has been pressed. Or you can do it to a specific single vessel. So the benefits of animation G2, it is very expandable. So you can spawn and continue. So you can do an animation and it'll automatically continue after you're done with the previous animation. The behavior can be customized on a snapper or vessel basis. So whatever snapper you're operating on, it can modify the behavior, and the vessels that you're using can modify the behavior as well. So then we also have predefined behavior in animation G2, which is the candidate picker. That's there by default for specifically for the tool animation G2. This will pick any snapper that isn't the floor. And then we have feature snapping. So you can hover around, it'll tell you whether you're on like the middle and whatever. And then by default, there is also candidate highlighting. So you know exactly what you're trying to pick. And then there's the pointer graphic. The pointer graphic is a little less default. You get this. It just requires you enabling it and then adding tags. So the animations have tags. The tags that you want specifically in general would be like adding, removing, or selected. And these give you 3 different graphics for the pointer. There are actually 2 more default pointer graphics, but this can obviously be overridden and you can have whatever pointer graphic you want. Then we have the fact that it's G2 properties compatible. So you get all the core properties, all of the properties work within animation G2. And then I have a demo for you all. Let's bring it up. All right, so I wish I had a mouse, but it's okay. It's super awkward. Get rid of this guy real quick. No, that's fine. All right, so I don't know if you all were here for the last dev conference, but this is very similar to the demo that was presented last time. I have, I can pick graphics into a stack, but I also have, if you see the little arrow there, that is the adding, that is the adding pointer for the 3D that you get. It's a vessel. And then if I go to remove, now you have a red X. That is your default removing pointer graphic. Then I added the ability to pass off my graphics to a snapper. So I'm just sending my graphics to the snapper that I created for this demo. And this is done in a very generic way. Like the snapper that I created has a vessel in it, which is the graphics for that model, similar to what you saw in the last presentation. And this allows me to access the vessels generically through the interface that exists to get vessels. And then the vessel itself has a prop def on it, which is the model. And I'll show this to you real quick. If I can find it. There it is, actually. Get over there. Get this guy. So this is how simple it is to send something to something else. So I have my candidate, which is a snapper, but it doesn't have to be a snapper. It just has to be able to access the vessel's interface. So I say candidate vessel, I give it the key for the vessel that I'm trying to get, and then for safety, we have the question mark of safety, null safety. And then put is how you send a prop def to something. So I'm putting the model, giving it a safe instance of the primitives that I have collected here. And this is how simple it is to send to an object. Like this is some of the nice stuff that you get with Animation G2. It's just generically sending data from one point to another point. Let's see, back to the PowerPoint. And then I have in here, I have snippets of all the classes and methods that I have. So this is the demo animation that I created. If you see up here in the construction, I've commented out feature search and use selected rectangle. These, if I comment them in, actually I'll do that real quick just to show you. It's probably better to show than talk about. So I just commented those in, and now if I go back to the 2D and 3D view and look at my animation, it's that simple to get a select rectangle with the animation. And then you have the feature snapping here, and it's that simple to get it. Obviously, if you want to do stuff with that information, if you want to do something with the rectangle select or the feature snapping, that's something that you're going to have to add in. You don't get everything for free. And then go back to here. So this is how simple it is to set up this animation. Essentially, all I actually needed was the I mean, essentially the only things that I had to override was the constructor, init vessels, and release. Those are the only three things that I had to override in the animation to get it to do what I wanted it to do. Um, and then, actually, that's not true. I had to create the tags to get the pointer. I don't know if you can see that. It's super dim. That's disappointing. But then the feature searching, there is a method that you have to override feature search feedback. You have to return true there if you want, or base it on some kind of logic. Then I have two filters that I created that actually the vessels that I created make use of. So whenever I go to the place animation, the place portion of the animation, it switches to a filter that only searches for um, that model the snapper that I created, and then by default it is looking for anything else other than my demo model snapper. Then we have the graphics stack vessel, which just has a stack for the graphics that I collect. It has a boolean for removing and placing. It has properties for remove, place, and stack, so that I can generically access those in other places. Init vessels, this one vessel has three vessels. It has a push vessel, a pop vessel, and a place vessel. And then this also has the Get 3D overridden so that it will show you all of the graphics that you have collected. And that is, I feel like that's the same thing. Anyways, so we have the place vessel. This has one method in it. Its job is to place the primitive. Um, that's all it does. It tells the candidate, hey, I want your graphics vessel, and I'm going to give you these things. Have fun. Um, and then the pop vessel is responsible for pulling off of the stack, and the push vessel is responsible for putting onto the stack. So all of that behavior is spread out across three vessels, and none of them need to know about the other. So it's just super generic. Then I have my demo model snapper, which has a graphics vessel. It has a vessel that is just responsible for the graphics. And this is using the vessel 3D visitor pattern to grab the vessel's 3D and then just drawing the graphics that exist on that vessel. And then, all right, in conclusion, the new system is more flexible and allows for a more versatile user experience. The vessels allow for separation of functionality from the animation and contextual functionality during an animation. So the animation itself doesn't need to know what it's operating on specifically. It just needs generic information to do its job. The vessels handle more contextual stuff. The snappers themselves feed the animation stuff. And then prop defs are what make it easy to add and modify properties, but also it's what allows for a lot of the flexible nature of the animation P2 stuff. Are there any questions? Um, I can probably make it available. Any other questions? Any other questions? Yep. Um, in this example, no.
You wouldn't want to.
Yeah, correct.
Vessels are supposed to be temporary.
This was just a demonstration of basically how easy it is to pass uh, vessels or prop defs from one thing to another, just using the generic interfaces that exist. So I would not recommend doing what I did.
If we have an existing extension that really isn't using G2 or the core properties, you have to use G2 animation. You have to convert all your snappers using core properties.
Separate things.
Yeah.
Right. Well, so your snappers can just indicate whether or not they're going to use G2 or not, right? Same with your animations.
Yeah.
It's the G2 animations are by default saying yes, I'm G2. Of course, you can just flip that. So if you want, say, your snappers to use the new properties, yeah, you'll have to convert to from whatever property you're using now to properties. But from what we've seen in our experience, it's very fast. I mean, with the prop def syntax, thing about prop def, if you don't already have it, which you might already, making it very quick, and then setting up an input setting is, what, 5 words to type in, and then you got a setting for a property for it. That's going to get you properties, not just in quick properties, but animation properties, main properties, things like that. You will have to convert it to
So in order to get the most out of this, we would need to convert to 5
I haven't. On a couple of projects I'm working on, we're using the newer animation style, but we haven't converted over to using core properties or snappers yet. It's not as consistent user experience because if you're using like say like snapper properties, sidebar properties, they do visually look different from core properties, but they're basically the same from the user standpoint. So we intend to convert over, but there's no problem with not doing it. You don't need to like drop it to doing, oh my god, we need core properties right now. You're not missing out really. It's just
Any others? I guess I'm done. And you can go to lunch.